Hello students, so you're ready to start the grade 8 SketchUp 8 project. Alright, so we need to do a little bit of research first. So let's click on Internet Explorer or Google Chrome, whichever you prefer. And I'm going to go to the bestbuy.ca website, bestbuy.ca. I'm going to start there. You can always go to different websites, but let's start with bestbuy.ca. We may have to go to the manufacturer's website. We'll see. So let's go to bestbuy.ca. Okay, so your project is to draw a digital camera. So we need to find the digital camera that we're going to draw. So let's go to the Products tab, and let's go to Cameras, and let's click on digital cameras. Now, these cameras here that have the complex lens, they're a little bit more difficult to draw because they have this different shapes in the body. But if we stick with digital cameras, they are essentially a rectangular box, a rectangular prism with different parts to it. All right, I'm going to click on digital cameras, okay? And then I'm going to choose point and shoot cameras, point and shoot cameras. Okay, so we need to find a camera that you want to draw. Now, it doesn't matter what company, Sony, Canon, Nikon, Pentax, it does not matter, okay? So I'm just going to choose this one right here. I'm going to choose a Canon. Mainly because I have Canons at home. I have a Canon point and shoot, and then I have a Canon DSLR. All right, so this one looks pretty interesting, and it's on sale. Looks like these two are the same, Canon PowerShot ELPH 160. So let me click on that. Okay, so not only do we need to know what the camera looks like, because unlike an Apple iPod or the iPad or the iPhone, which we drew last year, chances are you probably don't have multiple variations of a digital camera. So we need to have photos of it. Now, what's good about this website is that it kind of gives us views from the top, from the back, and from the front. So that's kind of what we need. All right, so let's scroll down. We've got good pictures here. So let's scroll down, and we need to look for this tab called Details and Specs. So let's click on Details and Specs. And what we need to look for is we need to look for the physical dimensions of our device. So let's go down, and sometimes you got to look for it, but here we go. Physical features, we have the dimensions: width, height, and depth. So these three numbers are numbers that we're going to need. So you can either take a picture with them with your phone, or you can write them down like I'm doing right now. Okay, so let's try to analyze these dimensions. Now again, you're choosing your camera, so your dimensions are going to be slightly different. So we have the depth of 9.52. Now, even though they call it the depth, when we look at the front, this is probably the 9.52, right? 9.52 is the largest dimension, and that's probably the largest dimension there. So I wouldn't exactly call that depth, but that's what they've called the depth. So the next largest um, dimension is the width. The width is 5.43. So if we kind of use logic, that's probably this dimension right here, 5.43. And then the last dimension is the smallest dimension, which is the height, which we would probably call the depth or thickness. So you just need to kind of get your head around these three dimensions. So it really helps if you write them down or if you've got photographic evidence of them. Okay, so let's go to our SketchUp sketch. Let's zoom in towards the girl's feet. Again, we want to have the camera and the girl kind of in the same shot, so we have that perspective. We have that size comparison. All right, so let's click on the rectangle tool. And I'm not going to start on the red line. You can start on the red line if you want. You could start at the origin. It's just sometimes because those lines we can't delete, it's nice if they're not sitting right on the line. Okay, so I'm going to click once. Don't hold the mouse. And I'm going to drag a rectangle out. So I've got to think about these dimensions. So we have the thinnest dimension. And then we have the greatest dimension, I think is what we're going to go with. So I'm going to type in 9.52. Actually, I'm going to do something first. Sorry. All right. I'm going to undo this. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to click on Model Info. So click on Model Info. Down the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Units. In the Format window, I'm going to choose Decimal. And for the units, I'm going to click centimeters. So now what we're doing is we're activating the centimeters template so that everything I draw now will reflect in centimeters. Okay, so there's no OK button, so let's just close. All right, so let's try that again. Now remember, this project is a lot about problem solving. So I'm going to click once, don't hold the mouse button, drag a rectangle out. Okay, so I'm going to try my largest dimension, 9.52 cm, comma, space, and then my smallest dimension, which is 2.21 cm, and I'm going to click Enter. Okay, now that kind of looks like the base of my camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two techniques. So I'm going to draw two cameras. You only need to draw one, but I'm going to show you two techniques depending on how the body of your camera looks. So I'm going to click on another rectangle here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to type in 9.52 cm, comma, space, 2.21 cm. All right, so here we go. So there are two ways that you can draw this camera. So the first way reminds us of a project you did for me in grade 7 called the pencil case, and when you drew the Apple device model for me last year. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the arc tool, and we're going to round off these sharp corners here. Okay, so what you can do is once you have one, you can't make the arc too small and don't make the arc too big. So for example, don't start over here and make the arc because then you're going to get, it's not going to look right. Okay, so once you've created one arc and you like it, you can rest your mouse over the end point, don't click, and then that should allow you to draw a line across. Is it going to show? There it is, the red line across. And that'll line up across the top edge. So then I'm going to create the other arc. And then if I'm on the end point here, I should be able to drag my mouse down, and it should be a faint green line to line up that edge. Looking for the pink line for the arc tool. And let's see if I can get that red line. There it is. Okay. So you used that technique for me last year a few times. Okay, so I'm having trouble with that one. So let's try it from the top here. Let's see if I can get the green line coming down. Yeah. Okay, there it is. There's the pink line. Okay. All right, so once I've got the four arcs, I've got the rounded corners, I'm going to cut them off. Now, it's very important that you cut off these corners before you make the 3D object. Once you make the 3D object, it's a little bit different technique to round off these corners. Okay. All right, so now I have my last dimension. So I'm going to use the push-pull tool, and the last dimension I have written on my piece of paper here. I'm going to click once. Don't hold the mouse. Just pull your mouse up. Don't hold the mouse button at 5.43 cm. Okay. So that is the shape and the dimensions of the box that's going to be my camera. Okay. All right, so let me show you the different technique. And it all depends on the camera that you are trying to draw. Okay, so this time I'm not going to round off these edges. I'm going to click the push-pull tool. Going to click once, don't hold the mouse button, pull upwards, and do 5.43 cm. There it is. Okay. Now, depending on your camera might have rounded edges this way. The other camera had rounded edges when we looked at from the top. But some cameras, if you look at from the front, they're rounded on these corners. Now, unfortunately, in SketchUp 8, we can't round off in both dimensions. For example, we can't round off from this side and this side. So let me show you how to round off from the front. So what we're going to do is, remember, the difference is we've already created the 3D object here. So let's use the arc tool and let's cut off the corner here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into that corner and I'm going to kind of look at that corner from the side. Okay, so let's see if this is going to work. I think if we click on the Follow Me tool, and if I click on this part of the corner, it should eliminate it. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to click once, and then I'm basically going to push back to the back edge, and I'm going to click a second time to finish that action, and there it is. Now I've got a rounded corner looking at it from the front. So if I zoom out, that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so you can do that on the bottom, you can do that on the four corners. Now, the thing about my camera is, again, this is where you have to look back at the picture, is that my camera is straight along this edge and it's got this nice curve here. A lot of Canons do. So let's use this technique. Let's use the arc tool technique. Click once in the top corner. Don't hold the mouse button. Click twice in the bottom corner and then push out a little arc here. Okay, don't go too far. It's just gradual, something like that. Okay, and then all I need to do is I just need to push this back. Now, if you want to be as precise as you can, my depth is 2.21. So that's one of the numbers I've written down on the piece of paper in front of me. So I could click once, push back, and I could go 2.21 centimeters. Okay, there we go. Now, this line we can simply hide, right? We could click, we could right click and just do hide. Okay, all right, so what do we do about the lenses? Okay, so the lenses you don't need to measure, but what you need to do is you need to kind of guess their position. So if this is going to be trial and error. So if I draw a lens like this and then I look at the picture and go, well, it's almost at the edge of the top and it's almost at the edge of the bottom. So is that really centered? You should be able to move an object once you draw it using the move tool. Let's see if that's going to work. It's not as precise as you might like it though, but looks like I am able to move it a little bit up and down. Okay, so once you get its position, instead of redrawing the circle over and over and over again, let's use the offset tool. If we click once, then you can draw a smaller ring. Now the cool thing about digital cameras is the lens, it has all of these rings that's really going to make it look like a camera. And then you've got this window with the inner lens in it here, and then you've got so many rings. Okay, so hopefully I've pushed you in the right direction. You can go to other websites to try and find 3D images or just more in-depth images. You just have to type in a Google search of your particular digital camera that you're drawing. Okay, so let's make sure that we save this. We save it as, I believe the instructions ask you to save it as camera model. Okay, and keep saving. Okay, very often keep saving. I don't want you to lose any work. Take your time. Put as much detail as you can, not only on the front, but on the back, on the top. And again, depending on what your camera looks like, I've shown you a couple techniques to get started. Okay, good luck. Looking forward to seeing the end project. Have a good time. Bye.